All right, give me a few seconds, guys. See, I turned off my mic and then forgot. So with that, I guess we will start the meeting very soon. Just give me a second to do one more thing. I don't want to sit around much more, especially considering we have a guest who has taken the time out of his afternoon to come speak to us. So I'm going to switch around everything right quick. It's been crazy. My computer sometimes doesn't like when I try to open Zoom after it's been off. So I was a little slower to boot everything up this afternoon. So I'm sorry about that. So that being said, I bet we will have, typically around this time, we'd be setting out the roll call. So I'm sure Robert's going to get that out very soon. With that in mind, we will get going on the front of speaker's podium and let our awesome Dean of Students speak right off the bat. So as I see him here, Andy, if you are ready to speak, you begin as you wish. I believe we asked you to come speak about housing policy, housing guest policy specifically in response to the COVID-19 guidelines and things like that. So you elaborate however you wish, and then typically we would do questions. So if you would like, we can have a couple questions there at the end as well. So you go ahead, kind sir.
That sounds good. Thank you, Joshua, for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to talk with you all. I have met with many students individually over the past semester and a month regarding some questions and some concerns. And I think where it may be helpful for me to start in terms of explaining where we are right now is that we recognize, and I recognize, the value of living in the residence halls. I lived in the residence halls when I was a student. I was an RA. I was a hall director, assistant director of residence life, and a director of residence life. And the residence halls are near and dear to my heart. And part of what was attractive to me about coming to UT Tyler about 14 months ago was the opportunity to continue to be involved in residence life and the value that I believe it adds to a student's experience. And so anytime that we place a restriction, it comes from a place of care, and it comes from a place of support for you all. We want to give you every possible opportunity to have the best experience possible. And we all know that COVID has provided some challenges related to that. And so we're committed to doing everything that we can to support students' mental health, to support students' connectivity on campus, and work to do everything we can to keep you safe and healthy and getting the best experience possible. I was actually overwhelmed over the summer by the response of students who were interested in living in the residence halls. We actually at one point weren't sure we had enough beds for everybody that wanted to stay in housing. And that leads me to believe that housing is doing a pretty good job with giving students the opportunities that they want and need to be here on campus, whether it be you're a student athlete and you want to be close to the fields, you're heavily involved in student organizations and want to be near meeting rooms. There's a tremendous value to that. And that went into a lot of why the no guest policy went into place is because a lot of universities reduced their occupancy. Some universities don't have operating residence halls right now during COVID, but we wanted to do everything that we could to give you all the best experience possible given the situation that we're in. And so those are pretty much my opening comments and remarks. But I want you all to know that our overall goal is to do everything we can to make your experience the best one possible. We listen with open ears. My office is accessible to any of you. I will tell you, when I interviewed to be a part of the UT Tyler community, Joshua, our student body president, was on my committee. And I was so excited to hear from Josh and some of his peers that students had a voice at UT Tyler and that students were comfortable voicing that. I think that is very healthy. And it is always helpful for us to know that students have a voice, that they want to voice concerns. And I want to make sure that I take the time to listen and work with you to find solutions to any challenges or concerns that you have. And so I just want to remind you that my door is always open to you. My Zoom door is also always open to you. Whether if you're comfortable meeting in person, we can always mask up and meet in person, but I've been meeting with students via Zoom for any multitude of concerns that I can help with over the last 15 months. So my door is always open to you. We are here to support you and do everything we can to respond to any challenges or concerns that you have. And so that kind of just opens up the door for you all to talk with me and see kind of where your concerns are and what you're hoping.
let's not speak all at once now.
I did have one question. Oh, here, Claire can go first. Senator Lombardi, sorry.
All right, so we have a question in, so Claire said that you said that you can help with any concerns, but what have you done to really address concerns students have currently? And Claire, the only thing I would ask is just to clarify if is there a specific concern? You know, I could talk a lot about different ways that I help students, but I'd like to make sure that I answer your question in the best way possible. So with the no guest policy, so what we've been able to do is work to provide passive programming and opportunities in the residence halls to help with that. I've asked the housing staff to work to support students in identifying spaces where we can safely interact. We constantly watch the Smith County numbers and numbers on campus to identify and reevaluate any of the restrictions that we have currently on campus. The goal, and I talked to a few students in the fall when they said, well, is this ever going to go away, the no guest policy? And I mentioned we want it to go away as quickly as we safely can. You know, and then in terms of some of the concerns that I've had with students in terms of mental health, you know, we have our counselor center available. When students were in quarantine and isolation, we had our counseling center reaching out to those students. Our housing staff contact our students in quarantine and isolation daily. And we're currently in the process of hiring 2 counselors who hopefully will be able to start in the next 2 weeks to support students with transition and challenges that they're currently experiencing. And so there's some good news and some more support that we're working to provide students so that you're supported. Does that help, Claire?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right, so Adam Watkins mentioned, has there been any downward trend with the number for either UT, Tyler, or Smith County? I'm looking to find the numbers. I will tell you that we have, there was a strategic decision by the university to start this semester virtually for a few weeks, hoping to bypass some of the concerns that we saw in the fall. Many of you may be aware that we did see some spikes in mainly September after Labor Day. And so that strategy, and I'm going to knock on wood, seems to have really worked well. So our numbers on campus, I think, are looking better. If we look at point in time from this semester to last semester, are looking better. Our incident response team constantly checks in on those numbers and looks at them. And so I don't know that we've seen a lot of progress, but I would certainly have to check with the incident response team to see where we're at in Smith County at this moment. But I think we are in a good position in terms of what campus is looking like currently. And we just want to be cautiously optimistic that our plans are working and that our students are safe and healthy. And so that's probably the best answer I have to that. But obviously we're hopeful that Smith County, Texas, and the country's numbers start to go down so that we can, you know, figure out what we're going to look like in this, you know, pre and current and post pandemic that we're experiencing. And I do apologize. I'm at home and my dog just barked. I apologize for that. Adam said, makes sense because of Christmas. Thank you for the precautions. Are you guys concerned about Valentine's Day or spring break? That I don't have an answer to at this time. I don't know that Valentine's Day is something that we're worried about, but there are universities across the country that are assessing what spring break may look like. Some universities are ending early and not doing spring break. We as a university are conscious of what a break means for students. And that decision is not something that is taken lightly. And so I think we'll have to wait to hear a little bit more if there will be any changes to the calendar. But at this time, I have not heard that we will be making any changes to the calendar at this time.
Just a quick question. Whenever you guys decided to put in place the no guest policy, did you consider a one guest policy? I know a lot of students, at least coming into this semester, one of the motivating factors for those who ended up coming in the housing and then leaving afterwards was because the no guest policy was still in place, and they had a hard time just seeing their significant others. I've also seen other students where the no guest policy doesn't explicitly state that they can't sit in their cars together. So I'm a RA over at Liberty Landing, and oftentimes I'll see residents sitting together in their car because that's technically not in violation of the policy, but instead they're just running their car on recirc, sitting all together.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, and
yeah,
so
just to get around it.
yeah,
They're still together.
right, right, and I think that the goal is not to restrict students' lives as much as possible. And so, I think that what would be helpful if students are looking for ways to safely engage is that we find places on campus where we feel like that can happen. And so, students are well within their right to be in a car together, and there may be other options for them. And so, I would encourage students that are um, experiencing that, and if they feel like that's not the safest environment for them to interact, that they talk to me or talk to their housing staff to identify areas and ways that we can help them be safer. But back to the first part of your question, was that what other options did we consider? When we first opened in the fall, many of you are probably aware, and it feels like a long time ago, how many universities in the fall went all virtual for the entire year. That was our primary concern. We know that our UT Tyler students want, based on housing numbers and requests and desire, to be in person as much as we possibly can. And so one of the things that one of the reasons why we went with the no guest policy was we were worried about being a university that put a lot of resources into getting this semester going and having some in-person opportunities and full in the residence halls and then switching to all online. There were some universities that did it within the first week. You have to take a lot of considerations. We have lots of international students who traveled. And there was one university in particular where there were international students who had just arrived and they made the decision to go virtual. And unfortunately, those international students were kind of left in a lurch. And so that's why I mentioned that we're constantly looking at this and seeing what we can do, evaluating what might be a practice that may help, because I agree with you. It is a tough way to respond to COVID, but we also know that we have to balance your safety and the safety of the community with how we operate, right? There's a huge domino effect with a spike in COVID cases. And so there are models out there, and we're constantly watching those and calling our friends that work at other universities or their dean of students and housing offices to talk with them about how those are going and how that's impacting their community. And so that's the main motivation in terms of why we decided to go the direction we went, is we wanted to make sure that we were open and that we were able to get you all the experiences as much as possible. There's probably not a perfect scenario. There's definitely some scenarios that lead to very negative consequences of going all online. But we're hoping that the way that we have worked through COVID, which I am very proud of the way this university has responded, the way that you all have responded to the challenges that it has given us. Because at the end of the day, I know that you all want to continue your education. You don't want to take a gap year. You want to keep persevering, and we want to do everything we can to support you moving forward with your education so that the pandemic has as little impact on your future as possible. I hope that answers your question. It was a little long-winded. I do apologize, but it's a good question, and there's a lot of information involved in those decisions.
Thank you. I actually have one more if nobody else has any questions. So I know with the COVID hotline, whenever somebody calls and so they say that they've come into contact or they've contacted other people since testing positive, is that information is there any way to see where typically where people are coming into contact with, is there any way to see that sort of data and what's causing most of the cases on campus?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and definitely something that we evaluate on a regular basis. And so through the contact tracing process and the system that was developed to do that, we're able to pull information about students, where they were, what organizations they're involved in, where do they live. I'll be honest with you, at this point, we have not necessarily identified one singular cause. And I think that's because you all have things you need to do. Some of you work off campus and then you come back to the residence halls. You might be a member of an organization where 3 or 4 members were positive, but that person may have gotten it from going home for the weekend. And so it's really tough to identify one specific root cause of any cases that have come up, but we constantly monitor that. And we do, as a university, review that to see if we can identify any trends. And so that is something that we constantly do, so that if we do start seeing a trend, that will also inform us of any steps we need to take to ensure safety on campus.
Does anybody have any other questions? All right, I'm not seeing any. So I do not have any questions, Andy. So I guess if there are, Robert, do you have one? You just unmuted.
Well, so we've had number of students come and want to have the guest policy changed. And so what's a process to get that taken care of from the student point of view?
Yeah, I think that's lovely, and a good idea. So if a student has, I would love to hear it, right? And so housing does report up to me. I would love to hear what students are wanting, right? Because that helps us get a jumping point to where you think we might be able to go. And so I would love to hear thoughts and ideas. If a student has a proposal or has some thoughts, you can come meet with me, you can email me, we can get on the phone. I'm happy to hear those thoughts, because I'm open. If we can find ways to do it, safely, as we continue to reevaluate numbers, and kind of the status of the pandemic in East Texas, um, I would be very open to hearing suggestions, thoughts, ideas, because you all are the ones who the solution impacts, right? And so if we decide, in the future to do something and it doesn't actually solve what you're hoping for, then it's a miss, right? And so you being able to provide that information, or a student being able to provide that information, helps us know what solutions you feel would suffice for what your concerns are. So I would recommend they come chat with me, send me an email. I'm happy to meet with them.
Okay, so we've had a number of students come to just talk to us individually, because a lot of people come to us and just say, hey, here's how we're feeling, what we're thinking. Usually they're pretty well thought through. They've got some good evidence and good information and things like that. And we've had people come to student forums where they come talk to us, kind of like how you are, but you're a special guest. They would come as a student forum. And then we've actually have quite a few RAs that are in this group. And so we have had quite a bit of discussion about it. So it's probably something that we should try to get a little group of people maybe that can set something up and work on that.
I would be very open to talking and hearing. Obviously our RAs are wonderful student leaders who are connected to our students in the halls, and they have some experience with that. And so I'd be happy to talk through it. That would be it would be appreciated. Again, your student voice and your sharing with concerns only strengthens how we move forward. So I would very much welcome that.
Awesome. We'll try to work on it.
Yeah, and then
I won't be,
Andy,
I won't be one of them, but I don't live on campus, so.
Andy, I know, and I don't know if you've heard of it. I know specifically one student, and I think an RA at Liberty Landing had started a petition, and that's kind of what spurred us having this discussion anyways. And now in the past, outside petitions have been hard for SGA to work with, because I'm not at odds to say that those represent all the students at UT Tyler, because I'm not sure if all 500 or more of those signatures are all UT Tyler students. And so I can't say that the petition represents all UT Tyler students. However, there is a student I think would be willing to work with you. And then I think some of these senators here, we could get together and knock that out and kind of get you some kind of, because now I haven't heard directly as much as RAs. I know that Senator Botter and a couple other senators are RAs. They would be the best ones to reach out to, and you have those contacts. But I think we could get that together, and then some of those students that may not be primarily SGA would also provide a lot of advice. And are you wanting? I find it harder to get just students to email. If you tell them just email, they often don't do that. So would you like us to set up like a short moderated discussion similar to this, but gets into those weeds of ideas between any students? And is that something that we could do that's like this, but more targeted towards ideas or and anything that they have that's not just limited to SGA?
Yeah, and I think the overall goal, right? I've heard, from several students that feeling disconnected or they're feeling isolated. And so what I want to make sure that when we get together as a group to look at that or to listen to some solutions, is that we're targeting it at the at the challenges that students are facing. I think there are students that have challenges and that we want to respond to and make sure that they're well and that they have everything that they need. And so when we come together, I think what would be helpful is to hear what solutions we think would solve some of those. But yeah, it could certainly be a discussion. I'm more than willing to do that. I can do it. I can do it after hours. It's at the availability of the students to have that discussion and kind of tell us what they feel would be best and how it would support them as students. And I think that's probably one of the best ways to help us evaluate potential solutions to the challenges students are facing.
All righty. Well, and that's something we will certainly do. We can get together outside of this meeting, and I think we will do so. So I don't know if anyone has any last minute questions, but as we catch you here for a little while, I don't. You got one, David?
It'll be quick. With the new changes and the addition of the COVID meal plan, I don't remember specifically what it's called, but the meal plan for students in quarantine. Now that it's charging for, it's coming from students' meal plan accounts. Have there been any changes to like a student's ability to prepare for whenever they go into quarantine? For instance, like let's say they're at the end of their meal plan and they would rather not use the new meal plan that would be added to their account to go get food. Because I know historically it was once you got your positive test back, students were moved into a quarantine environment kind of as quickly as possible and were unable to leave campus. Have there been any changes to letting students go prepare for any sort of alternative if they choose not to use the meal plan option?
Yeah, I think if that comes up, where a student, for whatever reason, so the housing staff makes direct contact with the student before they go into quarantine or isolation. And so I would encourage the student, and sometimes I'm also on call, and so sometimes you may hear from me. I would encourage that student to talk about any concerns that they have with housing so that we can figure out what is needed for that student. And so that would just be the best recommendation. Our housing staff has just been tremendous this entire time in terms of supporting students and doing everything they can. And so I think if there's a challenge or there's a need, that when housing staff makes contact with that student, that they should tell them what is the concern, and so that housing staff can work to resolve any concerns that they might have.
Thank you.
Does that work? I know, David, you have the
Mhm.
inside view working from housing. Does that
Yeah.
work? Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, well, so I went into quarantine at one point last semester, and so I wasn't exactly sure because it was coming up to the uh, end of the semester. So I wasn't sure exactly what like my meal plans options were going to be. And so thankfully I had like frozen meals in my apartment and that I could just kind of supplement in the event that I was hungry and the meal wasn't filling or that sort of thing. But I also know that there were a few students who, whenever they received the email from uh, Scott Hendershot, came into the clubhouse and had a few concerns about the changes and a few questions like that. And so I tried my best to answer them, but I just wanted to see if there was any official change.
Yeah, and I think it's just so individualized, right? Like every student who goes into quarantine or isolation may have just individualized needs, from dietary needs to, even medicine, right? And so I think if we feel like housing, I can certainly have a conversation with Scott and the team to make sure that our team is available and has that opportunity to have that conversation to make sure that students have everything that they need.
Thank you.
No problem.
Alrighty, any other questions?
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I do appreciate it. My office door is always open to you, email, phone call. Like I said, I was a working student when I was in school and I didn't have much time during the day. If you need to meet at 6 o'clock at night or schedule a time, I'm happy to work with you to support you, and we'll get through this thing together.
Thank you so much, sir. We all know that you're awesome, and we all know that we have an awesome guy representing us and the school. So thank you so much for everything that you do, and thank you for being here this afternoon, especially with those kiddos that I hear in the background that are waiting for you to get off the Zoom call right now. So thank you so much for everything, and I guess we can let you go. And you have a wonderful evening, sir.
You all too. Let me know if you need anything. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Alrighty, guys. So that was awesome, and I would recommend that we will try. I'll try to do a moderated discussion or of some kind with him, and then we'll kind of like we've seen in the past with some things that she has done, and we'll get hopefully the original author of the petition here and discuss that. So I'll let you guys know when that's happening. We probably won't be able to schedule it amongst a lot of people. It'll just be like a discussion, maybe two, depending on what his availability is. And kind of like have those little discussions with them, 30 minutes to provide ideas and stuff like that. So that being said, we will move on to officer reports. If you guys would like to discuss any more of that kind of stuff, let us know and we can talk about it in new business. As far as what I've been up to since the last time you guys talked to me, as I brought up last week, I was going to be meeting with the new president, Calhoun. I did get to meet with him. For the record, he is an awesome guy. He's an awesome advocate for students. And so there's a lot that we'll be working with and some of the things that we have on the table as far as advising Canvas are now in his ear. So he is keeping that in the back of his head for a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, and I'll keep him progressively upgraded on what we're doing there. As far as anything else, I've made some of those marketing materials and sent it to all of you. And so that's pretty important stuff. I'm going to say on that something that's occurred to me, and because of needing to meet with deans and head of constituencies anyways, I'm going to ask that before next week's meeting, each one of you reach out to your dean or head of constituency, reach out to them and copy myself and any other senator you have, or collaborate with the other senator of your constituency. So if there's more than one, decide who's going to reach out to this person and reach out to them and CC me. Give them that marketing material and ask them what are ways you guys can do to work together to get some stuff out for students, specifically getting students involved in SGA. If you didn't get that poster, can you please let me know, because I believe I sent and got it out to everyone. However, if you didn't get it, let me know so I can get it to you. But by next week, could you please send that email to those people and have me CC'd on there, and that's how I'll check if every dean got it. And whichever one didn't get it by next Wednesday, I'll reach out to directly to make up for any holes that we have. So just let me know about that. It won't be that hard as long as you send an email. It's not that hard to connect my email to it. So I think that's all I have. If I have anything else, I'll let you guys know. So with that, you can go ahead, Jennifer.
Hey guys, I'm going to keep it short and sweet this week. I'm not feeling super great, but I have been emailing back and forth with Camry Tharp, and we've been talking about some events that we're going to work on together, that we're going to work on with her team. That's super exciting. And then just kind of getting used to the VP office a little bit more. I did send out an email to you guys last week, just updating you all. I wanted to let everybody know that there is now a Senator of the Week survey in our forums on Engage. If you guys, you see a senator doing really well, if you could please nominate them for Senator of the Week, that would be really cool if that's something that we could get started back up. And then the rest of it's in committee reports.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I'm going to move down to Chief of Staff Ray. Secretary Foote had to move away for just a second. So you go ahead, Robert.
Okay, sorry, hang on, I wasn't ready. Okay, I did the attendance link in the chat. So I noticed a few have not done it yet. So if you haven't done that, could you jump over on it real quick? Click that link. If anybody needs me to resend it special to them, just private message me. Then, okay, so let's see. So this week, I guess you could kind of call this a bit of a committee report. We did have the meeting with Ashley Bill, and I see Josh Neves is not here. He'd be excited to hear about it probably, but I want to say it went really well. Taylor Knight was there, as well as President Mennonett, and she was just as expected, took our advice, was really excited to hear it. I mean, it was like we were helping her, it seemed. So even though some of the things we were having to say weren't always the most exciting things to say, but I just wanted to definitely rave on her. She's done fantastic. We were really impressed with that and felt like the meeting made a lot of progress. So hopefully we'll get some feedback from that in the near future as well. And that process, I hope, is what we can do with Dr. T there, and because he seems just as responsive. So if we can do those meetings with those heads of organizations, then it would really be valuable, because I think it turned out really well. So props to our faculty and staff there. And then let me check. We have had a number of people kind of dropping out at the start of this semester as realizations that some of the requirements are going to be a bit much. And so some of those students have asked, some of us just dropped out. So we are low on numbers. Make sure you're trying to pay attention to that. Hopefully we can try to rein that in. Second thing was, there are a few people who are looking to do the judicial board. So there are positions open. President Mennonett will nominate those at the time that's appropriate. So he's already said that he would nominate the people that I've talked to. So that's gonna be it. And that covers my main stuff. I have one other thing I'll say in rules.
Really quick, Robert, after today, what are the expected amount of open seats on the judicial board?
So let me check the official roster. Right now, we have 3, and there are 2 more coming in. So that'll be a total of 5. We can have up to 8. So there's still 3 spaces available. I haven't talked to Gerardo Rodriguez, Senator Rodriguez. He said that he wasn't going to be able to do SGA this semester. I haven't heard back from him whether he would like to do the judicial board if not.
Alrighty, thank you. So moving on, we'll move into student life. Jennifer, you said you had a couple of things.
Yeah, so this week my committee met as the Student Life Committee for the first week, and I gave them all a little project to be brainstorming ideas for events. And Claire came up with some wonderful ideas that included a little bit more movie night, so that we could host those over something like Zoom, and maybe just have like a little info session ahead of time about, hey, this is what SGA is about. Here's a link, fill out our interest form, and then we just all kind of watch a movie together, and some other stuff that we can do safely from home. So more along the lines of movie night in a box, date night in a box, stuff like that. And then we chatted about the Freshman Friday events that are going to be happening on campus. And I did forget to mention during my e-board report, I'm also setting up meetings with all of the deans, just because that's not something I got an opportunity to do last semester. And I'm also working on a monthly newsletter for SGA. And that's going to have just kind of the rundown of what days our meetings are on, or what dates our meetings are on, something interesting that's happening in SGA, get to know an executive board member or senator, and then it's going to have a list of all of our open spots, so that if you guys know of anybody that fits the requirements for one of those open spots, you can know that the spot is open and invite them. And that's it.
Awesome, thank you, Jennifer. And so, JT, if you'd like to go on now for communications and your officer report.
Sure. All right. So I haven't done anything for my officer report yet because I am I'm the secretary now. I just got the position, so still working out all the kinks with my schedule. If anyone is interested on being a part of the communications committee still, please reach out to me via email, jfoot@uttyler.edu or jfoot3@patriots. I'd be glad to figure out what time will work best for y'all. Probably tomorrow I'll send out an email to everybody with a time. And if that doesn't work for you, but you do want to participate, just let me know. And yeah, I don't have a whole lot of things in my officer report either. Just that I just got started, so excited to keep doing. So, yeah.
All righty, thank you so much, JT. And last but not least, I guess anything you have to bring up, Robert.
Yes, so I have worked on a new draft of the rules. Hopefully, I'll get to meet with Josh Neves and probably the e-board to just double check and make sure that everything's good to go. And then hopefully at some point in the next couple meetings, I'll just present those changes. It's very small, so. That's all for Rules Committee.
Okay, give me just 1 second, guys. Next order of business is student voice reports. Last week, I know I said, and just really briefly, that I would be sending out some sort of document to you guys. I kind of reverted my idea on that. I didn't want to add any extra, what felt like homework to me for you guys. And so I decided not to do that. However, we're here this week with College of Arts and Sciences and so is College of Business. So I see Senator Lamberti is here. So do you have anything, a brief to report for College of Arts and Sciences, or do you have anything, just anything else you're hearing from anybody else?
Yeah, so I actually, myself and Senator Forrest, we actually met with our dean to kind of talk about stuff concerning COVID really in the semester. We just kind of asked, what is the college really doing trying to keep students engaged for another semester online? He said they're just really continuing to have conversations about making Zoom learning better, really trying to focus on that. Really trying to not let professors forget that Zoom students are actually still in there. in the classroom. So it was engaging. It didn't accomplish as much as I would have hoped, but it was a good conversation. We discussed some of the flyers that you had sent out with him about like the keeping students engaged in CAS with like SGA and stuff like that. So I'll probably work with him more, probably one-on-one, to try and get maybe some of those put up in like RBS and CAS and all that stuff. We talked more about the organized Canvas pages within the College of Arts and Sciences. And he had said that he was going to talk to other deans about it as well, just trying to make things a little more user-friendly. And been working on another event. It's a pre-theology panel for CAS. It'll be February 24th at 3. So I'm getting members of like the clergy and things like that for a discussion panel, a moderated discussion panel, just to raise some awareness about the pre-theology program at UT Tyler. And I've been working on my senator project.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It sounds like you guys are busy down there. And so sorry, Senator Forrest, your name down there slipped my vision. So do you have anything to add to what she brought up?
She really hit all of it, but I think with our meeting with the dean, I wanted to push for like engaging students on Zoom and having the professors not forget about the Zoom people. So we talked a lot about that and how what professors are doing good with Zoom and how professors aren't doing good on Zoom. So that was really a good conversation we had with him. And then of course we talked about Canvas organization and where all of our assignments are. And that's about it. We talked more about how to do better online with online learning, since that's basically all we can do because of COVID. But it was a good talk.
Awesome. Well, that sounds good. Good to hear that you guys are meeting with Dean Gray and communicating with him. And keep that up, because I think, I hope you guys learn that's one of the best ways to stay communicating with him, because he is so in tune and networked into his college that you guys have. I mean, College of Arts and Sciences always baffles me because you guys have so much that it goes from one end to the other. And so keep that up, because you guys are doing an awesome job. And so moving on, Souls College of Business. I guess we'll move over to Senator Jennings. If you have anything to share from the Souls College of Business, you go ahead.
Yeah, of course. Hey guys. So I have a few things, 2 personal experiences and 1 kind of general. So the first new challenge of spring semester, obviously in the College of Business especially, professors were allowed to decide whether they wanted classes to be online or in person. And a class that I thought was in person is now online. So I have 3 back-to-back classes, the middle of which is online, which is very difficult. 10 minutes is not enough time for me to run home and set up my laptop. So a new issue I've experienced is finding a good spot in the College of Business to do a Zoom class, because I can't not talk. I have to be able to speak in the Zoom, and we don't really have very many designated spaces. There is a good amount, but they're always taken up by someone, and you can't really schedule a time in them. So that has been a new issue I've experienced. The second thing would be Zoom classes. Again, I had to take a timed exam last week, and that was when the fire alarms were being tested at Liberty Landing. So I had to run out in the middle of my timed exam, which I understand they do that. They don't tell us so that it's a surprise. And that I'm not faulting anyone for, but that's just a new issue that I had not dealt with yet. But then the general experience I wanted to bring up, I think that things are flowing very nicely. Overall, I feel that everybody's had a good experience. I've gotten to talk to a lot more classmates this semester than last, and everybody's had good things to say about how professors and students alike are rebounding from this. in particular, I've found it a lot easier this semester to get in contact with group members on projects and things. People have been way more ready to set up a Zoom meeting and just knock it out. Whereas, last semester, people I felt like were still struggling to find ways to meet in person. We've just kind of adapted and moved forward. And so that has been really good to see our students being resilient, I suppose. That's all I had.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It seems like all the senators who spoke today you guys are up to good stuff. And it's awesome to hear from you guys and some of those things that I might be able to knock out, but just something we can reach out for. If there's anything we can do more, I will make sure to do that. So that being said, next week for student voice reports, I think we will do College of Pharmacy actually, and College of Nursing and Health Sciences. So if you guys could be prepared for anything, again, it doesn't have to be anything excruciatingly long. Just come with anything that you guys are seeing, and hopefully you can communicate with some of your classmates before then. So that being said, we will move into old business. And as you guys remember last week, the first order of business for old business is the special election for the vacant treasurer position. So as you guys remember last week, we had an open nominations for those positions. This being said, we only had one person who was nominated and accepted their nomination for it. So to follow that traditional format, we will allow Senator Lamberti to give a short presentation if she so chooses. And then after that, we'll motion to vote in that election after she completes anything she has to say. So you go ahead, Senator Lamberti.
Well, thank you. Really, I just wanted to say that I have a lot of experience in treasurer positions. That's kind of where I started all of my organization experience, was in treasurer positions. So that position wouldn't be going to someone that doesn't have any experience in the position. So just, I have some idea of what I'm doing. I'm not going to say I know exactly what I'm doing because I've never done it for this organization before. So obviously not going to say that I know exactly what's happening, but I do have some idea. And that's really about it.
Alrighty. Does anybody have any quick questions for Claire before we move into the voting procedures, I guess?
Have you read up in the rules what your expectations are?
So I had read up on the rules for the secretary when I thought that was going on. So treasurer, not as much. I know it involves SGAC among other things. And I know from last week's meeting that we had that there's like the e-board meetings and things like that. So I know that to some extent what to prepare for.
Okay. The reason I ask is because there is some information there for you if you need some. So whether you get it or not, you can definitely look for those in there. There's a section on it, so it'll be helpful for just kind of give you a guide of what you're expected.
Alrighty. Does anybody have anything else before I guess?
Also, all of us were inexperienced when we started, so.
Awesome. So with that, I guess I can entertain a motion to proceed in this special election.
Motion to proceed on this.
Motion to open. Second.
All of us were like, what? So it was motioned and seconded, so I guess we can open. Robert, don't I need to take host privilege and do that? Because it's supposed to be secret ballot, right? You're also muted.
Yes, so if you give me a second, I can make a custom poll for this real quick.
Alrighty. David, I thought you would harmoniously sing the Jeopardy waiting song there for a second, but
I was gonna say, is there any other thing you want to do while I'm waiting?
hear David sing. That's what I thought we were gonna do.
All right. All right. Well, are you sure I'm not going to get DMCA'd for this one?
Yeah, no. No, I think I mean, I don't.
But while we're, unless you had something, I was.
No, oh no, and I was just kidding. You do not feel obligated to sing because I was just picking on you. No, I don't have anything. Not right off. Not anything that would need to be brought up. And considering it was motion to do this, I think for the sake of the meeting, we'll just keep it going right here. However, I won't ramble on because I did want to ask actually, now that we're sitting here, Robert had a meeting with Ashley Bill, and she wanted to have meetings specifically with people from each college to discuss their specific experiences with advising. We may have said that for a short bit. I'd really like to know, and by really like to know, like I need an email if you are interested. And if you are interested, at least 2 other people that you know who may have experiences with advising that would be important to bring up, or just who would be willing to share their experiences with advising. She said she'd be open to have meetings in the next couple of weeks, but in fact, if you I mean, we're all going to college here, so just send me if you're available to meet. But she said she is going to be diverse in her scheduling, so if you are just available at any time, I'm sure she'd be willing to sit down and speak just for 15 or 30 minutes. But please email me, because that was a really informative discussion that I sat in on, and it would be really important for her to be able to hear that from each, because I think we're all having different experiences and we're all experiencing it differently. So I think that's important to do. Just reach out and let me know so we can get her your email.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Is it almost ready, Robert?
Yeah, we're ready.
All righty, then we'll send that out.
We've got 2 Davids, so I told him to vote 1 as a guest.
Yeah,
but
I saw that.
I accidentally sent it in the full chat there. All right, there we go. While this is going, if there's 2 people that haven't done the roster, please mark your attendance. I'm guessing
I could guess who it was.
There's probably 2 that
had
to step away
again.
for something, but because
It was me again, and it was probably David's other account. Be my guess.
I didn't count David's other account. Okay, so there's 1 who hasn't voted. We'll take that as an abstain from this point.
All righty. Well, that sounds good then. With that, so congratulations, Claire, on your voting into that position. I'll send you all the information pretty fast and as fast as I can, especially for that meeting on Monday. And we will get you as much information and filler. If you don't mind, could you send me like your availability tomorrow or Friday or next week early, and we can have a short meeting to fill in some stuff, if that's okay. So congratulations again. We will move on to anything else that we have in old business that anybody would like to bring back up before we move forward. Sorry, just give me 1 second. I'm not hearing any right off, so that I would guess that would mean we can move to new business. The first order of business that I have is opening up and do I need to open up nominations, Robert? Sorry, I know we talked about it shortly, but do I need to do that? Or do I just need to get on?
No, you can just say, I want to nominate so-and-so and so-and-so.
All righty. So as Robert mentioned briefly earlier, we have 2 people that have come forward who have served in SGA before or currently that would like to serve on the judicial board moving forward. So the two nominees that I have, as far as I know, are Cameron Long, who we all know previously served as treasurer and has served in SGA for over 2 years before that. And then Casey Jennings is present today, and both asked to be nominated. So I'll be nominating those. However, it is up to everyone present to vote them in as judicial board members. So I think that's all I have to say, but I think Robert's getting the voting open. Does anybody have any objections or comments to add before we move to voting for those members?
They also get a chance to say something if they wanted to.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Do we need to wait a week from the nominations, or is it different with judicial?
I think it's different. We just vote them in now, I believe.
You're correct. You're correct. If you read the rules, it does kind of seem like that, but our precedent is that we don't wait a week. We don't wait 2 weeks for those, usually because those nominations come from the president rather than us. But that's a good point. Maybe something to look into for clarity.
I guess since I'm the only one of the two of us here, I will just briefly speak. Basically, those of you who don't know me, I work full time in a law firm on top of being a 15-hour student. So that's pretty overwhelming as it is. While I can make these meetings, I am basically not able to fulfill any of the other responsibilities. And I don't feel like that does this position justice. So moving into this role would allow me to continue to participate while not having to feel like I'm letting down the Senate, So that's kind of my thought process.
Alrighty. Robert, do you have those? Are you working on those polls? You guys don't mind filling out the poll? I don't know if sometimes just open up another window by accident can do that. All right, that's pretty close, Robert. I would just say that the other two, I guess if it reaches a minute, then you can, but I think that's fine. The call is abstain. All righty, well, congratulations then, Casey. That is sad to see that you will not be a senator anymore, but I understand you are a very busy lady and a very awesome lady. So anywhere that you go, you'll do a great job for us. And so thank you for taking this role and staying a part of us. And I know that whatever you do, you'll do an awesome job. So I can't thank you enough, no matter what you do for SGA. And then we'll get, I'm sure Cameron's up here next. All righty, thank you, Robert. You guys wouldn't mind filling that out. Alrighty then. Now that goes forward then. So we have two new judicial board justices, Cameron Long and Casey Jennings. So that's good. As now, I think, Robert, you said we have 3 more vacant seats on the judicial board. Alrighty. And can you, and I can send you the contact information for both of them, unless you already have Cameron's stuff. But can you send me that so I can get it put onto the official, and for the other 3 members as well, so I can get it put on the share drive version of this. All right, thank you so much. That being done, what? So that being done, we will move on to any other orders of new business that we have. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add? Any discussions to be had for tonight?
Motion to briefly discuss follow-up on our discussion with Andy Petit earlier.
Motion seconded.
Alrighty, David, you go ahead.
Just real quick, because I don't want to take up anybody else's time. What was your plan specifically for the meeting with Dean Petit?
Are you asking any of the like the follow-up meetings after today?
Well, so my understanding from whenever you suggested it was that we'd have a small group of people together and just put together a proposal with all the data we have and speak with him. But then I also know that you mentioned meeting with him one-on-one.
Yeah, well, so sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. I also reached out to Mickey already. He had tried to set up a meeting with Dean Petit. He's the one that came and spoke to us earlier during open forum. And so whenever he tried to set up a meeting with Dean Petit, they redirected him to Dr. Jennifer Waters' office, who is the VP of student. I'm trying to remember her exact title now. It's the VP that goes over Res Life. And he kind of hit a stone wall there. So I know he's still interested in meeting with Dean Petit.
Okay, and so to answer your question, David, I think what I'll do is, as you guys can remember, we were here last year when we had our meeting with commencement, is something not too much unlike that. I think it's worthy of having as many, like inviting students just generally and saying we'll host 2 of these different meetings, if that's okay with Andy. And so what I'll do is reach out to Andy tomorrow and just figure out 2 afternoons or times that work for him, and just we'll do even marketing for it and say, hey, if you're a student, you're in Res Life and you want to kind of share your ideas or hear what students' ideas are. I think that'll work better, because what happens a lot, and as you guys know, if you just tell students to email Andy, that's not really going to get a lot. And then if we're able to, as students, to incentivize students to go, and he's willing to sit down and talk to them, I think that'll prove our case a little bit more. And I think he's more willing to kind of talk about this issue more than I initially thought. And so I think we should take advantage of that and just at least have a discussion with him. Because the worst thing we can say is, what about this idea, Andy? And he just says, no, absolutely not. But if we don't have 20 or 30 students there, we can't have any of those ideas. And I think it'd be a really cool opportunity. As far as I care, we can have it in the UC ballroom if that's something, if we want to go as far as that. However, that would take longer to set up, but I think we could have it in the next week. That's really what I was thinking. I'll talk to him and let you guys know probably by tomorrow afternoon, if that sounds good, unless anybody has any other ideas of how we could facilitate a meeting in another way.
I know that meeting might attract some students who are particularly passionate about that sort of thing. Do you think it would be more beneficial to maybe have a smaller group of people first try to meet with him with those ideas? I know Mickey already has a tentative proposal that he was trying to bring that was a one guest policy, and then also the university implement some sort of like case percentage system where, like, let's say the university reaches 3% in quarantine or something like that, then it would go back to a no guest policy. And that was basically what his plan was, because that was something that Dave Hill over at Judicial Affairs liked whenever he spoke with him over there.
Okay. So and now I'm up for whatever. I understand the impassioned students thing as we've had those kind of things in the past, and I definitely don't want to run into it. But if I might be at the will more of just whatever Andy thinks. If Andy would like to have a group of several people, he may want that. So I don't know, but I think I'm more in favor of a small group and having someone like Mickey who's really thought this through and is respectful of and understands a little bit more. And then just having students comment on it in another form, even a survey if we'd like to do that. And I think that might work better. So I'll reach out to them, but I think if you guys are more in favor of like a smaller format, you know, David and some of these RAs and then some students who've worked on it, if that works better, then we can do that. Robert, you go ahead really fast.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with you there. I would say senators, because the whole purpose of the meeting is for SGA to voice some opinion in that sense. And then I would say senators or executive board. And then the person is, you said Mickey, I think the person who came to us for open forum would be another person I would invite to that meeting, because he's already proven that he can be responsible and be respectful. And so when we are meeting with heads of school, we want to make sure that we're not bringing a massive student. Now, that may be something he wants to hear or do later on, but I think the focus of this meeting should be SGA focus.
I think you're exactly right. And so I will reach out to Andy tomorrow. And what I'm going to need you guys to do is, I think, because we're already here and most of us have been here since Mickey originally came. If you would send me your email, I can get you into that meeting, but that will be the last call. And once I set it up with Andy, it'll be the last call for getting people into there. So if you'd like to be present for that, then please email me by tomorrow, because I'll probably get to discuss this with him tomorrow. And so him, anybody there, and then Mickey, because he was the original one who proposed it. Does that sound good? All righty. Does anybody have anything else to add to discussion that Senator Botter brought up? All righty, then we'll close that discussion, and I would like to ask if anybody has anything else to add. Yeah, I mean, I think so. Sorry, I was answering somebody in the chat who. Go ahead, JT.
Motion to discuss returning to in-person meetings.
Motion second.
Okay, so in our e-board meeting, Josh Neves brought up that he would like to see us, since we're under 50 people, return to in-person meetings. And I know we had a fair amount of discussions about that in the past. So I was wondering if anyone else had any thoughts about that, and I guess, Josh, what you want us to do about that. Like, do we need to vote, or, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's definitely in the works. I would just say, does anybody have any, like, I think we'd have to decide on it, and I'd feel better if we unanimously decide on like what we wanted to do. Now, my 2 cents is that it is possible, completely 100% possible, to do it within safety guidelines and have an effective mode of transportation between anybody who had to do it online and anybody who made it in person. The second distinction I would make is that obviously if you're able to make it in person, I mean, the only constraint being if you live within a certain distance away, we would love for that to happen. And that's really what we're asking for, because after that, it's going to be on the e-board to figure out those safe ways and effective ways to conduct a meeting that's hybrid. As I'm sure you guys have seen, classes is sometimes difficult when you're in a hybrid setting. However, it's not impossible. And I think a lot of those distinctions could be made, and it would allow us to kind of branch out in the ways that Andy was talking about and provide us opportunities to interact beyond what has already been created. So it's kind of just like, do you guys have any opinions? Do you have any ideas of like technology that's effective in this scenario? We have a conference microphone, but that's not really good when if you have 18 plus people in a room. I just kind of, and sorry, I didn't mean to override you, JT. It's just kind of the direction we're heading. We're going to decide on whether to do this, but we want to make sure that the work we put in, you guys will enjoy it, and it will make it an effective meeting. I think that's what JT is trying to get at for sure, and Joshua is too as well. Does anybody have, any opinions, any technological know-how about how that room would work? Anybody have a reference to what room would work that would be effective? Have you guys been in a room before that really works well?
Personally, I'd like to suggest one of the bigger College of Business rooms. I can't remember the number of the room, but it was where we first had our meetings, Josh, like our first semester. Yes, thank you, Valerie, COB 108. That has the tiered seating. And there's, I think it has like 100-person capacity. So let's say if we even get 18 people to come in person, that's more than enough room for us all to be spread out safely, not sitting next to each other and all of that. Awesome. Oh yeah, that's even better. Yeah, if there's screens where we can see our people on Zoom.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm very in favor of us moving back to in-person meetings. I would love that.
And I think those rooms also have microphones built into, and speaker systems built into the ceilings. And so if we get the PA system like working, it actually hooks up to the Zoom call at the same time. And I think we can work that out to be, because I find myself speaking the most and organize the meeting, but I think we can get the conference microphone set up an effective way as well.
Does anyone have any reservations of us going back to in person?
Okay.
I think that and what Melody just said, and among others, maybe the only concern that I would have would be losing members due to it potentially, and lack of attendance. So.
And so I think like the balance to be found is what I'd like to know is if we had one today, now if you knew about it 2 weeks in advance, would you be able to attend? As in, what the incentive is to come in person. And so, you know, keeping in mind there's some people who travel for more than an hour away. That our expectation is not to force people and make it inconvenient. The expectation is for me and, you know, me and David and JT, we live on campus, and if we're available, because we all love to be in person and it's a lot of fun to be in person, would you go? Again, and I understand if you have 3 children, I'm not going to, you know, have a fit about not being able to come. It's just supposed to provide an opportunity for those of us on campus to have kind of that experience that we've all been missing out on. I mean, it's been almost a year since we've gone to this format, and I haven't had an in-person meeting. I'm like twitching at the eyes from how crazy this is. So my real big question is if you're going to be able to come, because if it's just 8 of us, I'll set it up and I'll make sure that we can have it in person. And we're just trying to figure out if it would be feasible after that, but we don't know till we try.
There's an in-person meeting. You can count on me to be there.
All right. So just to, and thank you for that, Ben. Just to steer the meeting, I'd like to ask if we can have do we have a really quick poll on just who would be able to come in person, who would not be able to come in person? Yes, being you can come in person. No, just being strict, physical, inability to be able to attend in person. Preferably either yes to Zoom or yes to in person. That way it makes it much easier. Again, the incentive being we get to meet in person. Again, we're not going to say you're enabled to come in person or you're enabled to sit out and on Zoom. I just want to make sure that it's available for those people, specifically people who live on campus, things like that.
Keep in mind, this is not an official vote. We're just gauging opinion just so that we could ask everybody quickly.
Two quick things. I voted on either before Josh said to pick which one you would prefer, just because I figured it either would work for me, although I'd prefer in person. So I voted either, and then I also voted in person. So you can just subtract one from the either vote to get the count.
There was only one either, so that's okay.
There we go. Also, would it be beneficial to have maybe a test run meeting where 1 week we have one in person and then we see how it goes, and instead of making like a permanent, let's start doing in person, and then put us in a position where we have to backtrack later, meet back on Zoom the week after, discuss what worked, what didn't, and if we'd like to continue it then. That way, those who have hesitations or would prefer to do it on Zoom can kind of see how it would be.
I think that's a good idea. Because I mean, there's weeks like this where I have nothing to say the whole time, but then there are other times where I have a lot to say, and I'd hate for the first in-person meeting to be the one where I need to say something.
Yeah, of course. I think that's actually a perfect idea, David, and kind of to allow this to move forward and not to speak over anyone. So not to close the meeting, but I think one of the things we could do with this, just a quick idea, is we could reserve the room that we're going to use for, we could reserve it for every Wednesday night if we so choose. We reserve it for every Wednesday night, but not make any official announcement that will be in person anytime after the first one until we know how the first one goes. Does that work okay for everyone? Does anybody have any other ideas? Again, we're here for this time, so I say we discuss this as long as we need to until we figure out an effective strategy.
I'd also like to say that as secretary of the person who has to run the Zoom meeting regardless, the Zoom meeting will run regardless. And my goal with meeting in person, since I know it's going to be impossible to have everyone come, and I know before COVID, the Zoom meeting was really not a focus because none of us had to actually be on the Zoom meeting. Like we could just come in person or, oh, well. And now we know what it's like to be on a Zoom meeting. So it's definitely my goal to make sure that being on the Zoom meeting while we're meeting in person is productive and you're not, left out or anything like that. I'm still like trying to think through exactly how that's going to work. So it's definitely going to be a flex.
Alrighty. So I think, and Robert, I don't know who would exactly decide this. I say if SGA can decide it, it does just as good as eBoard deciding it. I think it's actually better. I know we've decided on, we've talked about monthly in-person meetings before, but I'm of the opinion that we kind of decide, engage on something here, and then we can try different formats. So I'm of the opinion that we reserve the room and plan to have a hybrid SGA meeting 14 days from now on the 27th. Sorry, that's not how you add. 17th of February. On the 17th of February, we'll have a meeting in person in the College of Business, whichever room we decide on. And that may be based on us going and testing the technology in person. So what we'll probably do is me and Robert or me and the officers will go to the room and test it out and see how things are heard from both sides. And then we'll decide from there. Because I just think that'll give us the best thing. And then after that, we can decide if we should do it every week or not, if it's even worth it. And we'll go from there based off that first meeting. Again, I'm not the one who can decide this for sure. I just am throwing, again, something else out there that we could do. or we could vote on it. That way e-board knows on Monday what the general consensus might be. Because if you're going to come to Zoom anyways every week, then it's not really going to matter if it's every month or not. As long as if it works good, then that's my thought, I suppose.
So for reference, this decision would be e-board official decision. Obviously, e-board wants to make a decision that fits the Senate. So, but I think we've kind of gauged that enough. So we'll have to make that decision in e-board. Also, I like the fact that you pushed to the 17th rather than next week. That gives us some time to talk to Advisor Neves and make sure that everything we're deciding is within his liking as well.
Yeah, and I think, well, sorry, I sound like a little bit. I think that would still be pushing the time for us to reserve a room in Astra, considering that's technically after 5:30 is still past the 14-week or 14-day mark. So I'll discuss with him, and then maybe we'll send out a quick poll, and then kind of you get to provide your input tomorrow, and then after that, we'll just kind of decide an e-board on Monday. I don't mean that to say like I don't want you guys to have input, but that might just be the quickest way and express way, considering it seems like there's multiple good ideas, just which one's going to fit us the best. I think is that kind of the general consensus of how it looks. So we may just have to do several trial runs, and again, I making sure that whoever's represented on Zoom is prioritized, because those will be the biggest issues in regards to being able to be represented. Okay. Yeah, happy birthday, Claire. Woo! So I think that's what we'll do. And just to make it recorded, and so you guys know, be prepared that if you were available and you said you would be able to make it in person, plan that for February 17th. I would love to have as many people there. Obviously, it would be just a joke, but it'd be cool to have Taylor and I drive from Houston. But that's the point of the Zoom call, is not to make Taylor and I drive all the way from
One of
Houston.
these days, I'm going to surprise y'all.
So that would be cool to see. However, we will do that, and we will plan and over plan to make sure people who were on Zoom, because of obviously that big physical limitation, would be able to be heard, and you wouldn't be limited based off the technological factors. So that's what we'll do. And eBoard will decide it for sure on Monday and let you guys know, because we may discuss whether it'll be monthly or not. That'll be our decision to be made, considering there wasn't I couldn't sense a very major for or against in that regard. But we will let you know on Monday. If you guys have any suggestions as to what the meeting could look like, I'm all ears for it, because I'm not the biggest tech guru. And so I don't always know the best cool things, but we could always put a little something towards it to make it as effective as possible. But with that, that was just me trying to wrap it up, unless anyone else has some big things that we could say that can move it forward a little bit. Other than that, we'll move on to something else if it's necessary. Alrighty, I'm not seeing any, so we will discuss that on Monday in the e-board, and we will let you guys know the exact specifics. But again, if it was available to you, plan for February 17th in person. That just sounds crazy to say, so I'm excited for that now then, and we will let you guys know more about that later. So that being said, does anybody have anything to add to new business before we get to rolling on out of here? Going once. All right, well, I'm not seeing anything. As always, in that regard, you guys can email me anything you have. I want to just review some things because Josh isn't here, and then after I review those, then we can motion to adjourn. The only things that I have is if you want to be in a meeting with Ashley Bill, please let me know. Just email me at jaminhin@UT-Tyler. That being said, if you have somebody else who would like to, I'd like to have more than just 1 or 2 people in those meetings, but not any more than 5 or 6. I know the other day 3 or 4 worked good, and Robert and Taylor are both very knowledgeable about what was happening there. Specifically, people who have had like not inherently bad or have inherently bad or inherently good experiences with advising, because that would provide very different aspects of it. But please let me know that, because she is willing to meet as soon as possible, but doesn't have to have it forced in the next couple of weeks. Also, if you would like to be on the meeting with Andy, please let me know as well, because I'll be reaching out to him tomorrow and would have those specific people to him as early as we can, because if that doesn't happen soon, then it's almost, we're in week 4. So housing stuff will have to move pretty fast in that regard. And then last, if you have any more input on the calendar, send it my way as well. In the same email, preferably all of those in the same email if you're going to send them all. That'll make it a little bit easier for me. But does anybody have anything else quick to add, specifically officers, before we move to adjourn? Alrighty, well, I'm not seeing anybody, so I guess we can, I guess I can entertain the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion seconded.
Alrighty, so the magical poll should be popping up soon. It seems like 3 of us just really want to stay here. All right, well, I don't know how that's going to move anymore. Yes, and so David, to answer your question, those are the first 2 that I think she wants the fastest. However, she's not saying she doesn't want input from the other 2 or the other 3, as she's already had some from College of Engineering. I would say that just let me know, and then I'll act as the bridge between her and you guys, and make sure you guys get a meeting put together. So Claire, if you don't mind emailing me, because I think that'll be the best way, but I'll mark you down as my list too, so I won't forget you guys. But preferably get some people outside of SGAs too, and not to limit you guys. But I'd love to hear from she'd love to hear from as varied opinion as possible, especially arts and sciences is a very diverse student population with different tracks and stuff. But that's all I have, guys. You guys do not have to stay here any longer. If you have any questions, I'll sit here for a couple more minutes, and then we can, you guys are free to go. So you guys have a great evening. All right, guys. If you guys need anything, just feel free to text me, anything like that.